kids want to feel connected with. Kids want to feel like you're talking to them, and it can't be an abstract concept. Like, these kids are really concrete brained, and I don't mean that in the sense of like an insult, like, oh, their brains are made of concrete, but I mean like from a like psychological perspective, they're very concrete. They're very red is red, blue is blue. I see three things in front of me. Abstraction's not really their strong suit. So when we approach it, we want them to feel like things are presented to them in a concrete way. This is the instrument. This is the sound it makes. Do you like that sound? Do you not like that sound? Here is an idea of what you will actually experience.
All right, I'm here with Devon Curtis. He's the head director at Oakwood Middle School, and he's also the music director and conductor of the Hollick Street Youth Symphony. Today we're going to talk about recruitment, different ideas from a practical standpoint and from an academic standpoint. So we'll just get into it right now. Value number one, fun. Mm-hmm. Value number two, novelty. Value number three is personal connection.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And then the things that we think are valuable, like way down the list, like for instance, we did a Mozart opera this year with the high school group. And if I showed that to like, fourth grade parents or fourth grade potential orchestra students, they would not care one little bit.
I think you get a little bit of an ooh factor, like, oh, that sounds nice and cool and professional. But I think it would be a very spark in the pan, like, oh, that's nice, and then move on immediately.
But that's my value. It's not their value.
Yeah. I don't know if audience participation is the right word for the context, but definitely maybe engagement in that sense, rather than, again, not just talking at, not just playing at them, but making it meaningful in a different kind of way, at least for these purposes. I definitely try to impress upon the students in the recruiting that, like, my hope for you is not necessarily that I'm trying to turn you into me. I'm not trying to turn you into a professional musician. My hope is that through this experience, and you stick with it, and you want to keep doing it, and it's fun, and you want to come back, is that at the end of all of it, the end, like let's say you graduate high school and you're still playing, is that you don't take your violin, viola, cello, bass, and put it in a closet, let it collect dust. Is that it's a place of comfort for you. It's a place. It's a place where when life gets tough or something's hard, you go, you pick it up off its stand, and you just work some stress out. Should we take more of a advocacy-based approach where we're selling music to students based off of it enhances test scores, it enhances neuroplasticity in the brain, and this at this point conversation starts steering towards how do we sell music not necessarily towards students, which that in and of itself is a whole conversation. It's like, who do we actually talk to? Who do we not talk to? Like, how do we frame the conversation? Like, okay, my selling group right now is I'm talking directly to the kids. I'm not going to talk to a 9-year-old about neuroplasticity and how working on an orchestral instrument is going to make their brain like stronger and more flexible and more malleable. Like, yes, the studies prove that. We understand that, but I don't know if they care about that at that point, or if it's something most of them, mass appeal, are really going to relate to. But when it comes to selling to not just the kids, but the parents, because as much as I want kids to be as autonomous as is practical, they don't have licenses, they don't have cars, they can't get themselves to events. Their lives are completely dictated by what their family, their guardians, their parents are able to facilitate. So we have to not just sell the kids, like, yeah, kid A, we do a great job. They're super pumped. They want to live, eat, breathe orchestra. But if their family, who is responsible for securing an instrument, for getting them to the events, to registering them for the class, isn't sold on it, then that's all bunk, because at that point the parent could just...
But no, I love that idea of creating videos, and because I think it like brings the classroom to, I guess that's grammatically incorrect. It takes the classroom to the students so they can have that experiential side of it, instead of just getting up and lecturing to them and saying like, hey, there's this, and that. And people at home might be thinking like, well, I don't have a video camera, I don't have stuff. Yeah. But if you've got an iPhone 7 or higher, you can make a video pretty easily,
Most of these activities are if they're well structured, pretty fire and forget. Like for the most part, these activities that come to mind for me is of course you present the rules of the game, you present the facilitation, you do a demo run of it. But once it starts, like again the bow race idea, where it's you've got a line of like 20 kids and they're passing a small object from the tip of the bow to the tip of their bow, and you always put the bases at the end because they're the ones that are going to struggle the hardest because their bow tips are the biggest, right? So they're going to have getting whatever tiny cup it is that you've placed on top of the bows, and that creates some comic as they pass it back. Once that starts, they'll take care of it from there. And that limit, like you're still watching, but having that video camera just panning as they go through, follow the cup. It's not anything different than what you'd already do. You're just holding something in your hand at the same time.
That personal connection, that in-person communication is probably going to trump like a video.
Oh, yeah. So I think that they're both valuable, but I do think there's a certain hierarchy of value, like of effectiveness, of bang for your buck. I think there's very little that's going to trump having a one-on-one conversation with a kid. Now, granted, it doesn't have to be a long conversation. And not only is it important just for the sake of the art form, but they need to get to know you, right? We have the unique opportunity as music teachers that, like, we get to have kids for multiple years. That even though I only see my kids for 2 years, which is relatively short compared to most of the United States, like middle school is typically 3 years as minimum, that doesn't mean that I still don't see them at middle school events. I still don't see them at high school events. And we have the ability to build this rapport for kids that really matters. So them not just experiencing the instruments and bringing the classroom to them, but bringing yourself to them. They need to get to know you. They need to know that you're not just this name on a school website or like a name on their schedule. They're like, oh, I guess I have Mr. Curtis's class this year, whoever that guy is. It's great if they know who I am before they see me. Like I had a wonderful experience actually this past weekend. I've been playing in a musical, and I've had this repeat experience with a family who's shown up to like all the events so far for like my recruiting. I saw this kid at the school, and like his parents showed up to our pre-year meeting, which is something we do at the end of the year, which is all the new parents who've already gone to the string drive, who've gotten the instruments. We do a meeting with our specific family group and like help reassure them and like, here's what to expect coming in. Here are our faces. This is who we are. Here's what to expect. If you have any questions, let's get those dealt with. So you can go into the summer with peace of mind, which I think is also a good retention tool and gives the parents a lot of truck with it. But I've seen this kid at every single one of them. I happen to see his family rides bikes along my commute as well to work. And it's gotten to the point where they recognize my car now and they wave to me when they pass by. I played a show this weekend and I didn't know it, but he was in the audience and he came up to me during intermission. He's like, hi, Mr. He's not even in my class yet. Like I'm having him next year, but like the fact I've already got that level of rapport with a kid prior to day one is incredible. And now granted, I'm not at all setting aside like that should be the expectation with all your students. It was a freak accident and I love that it happened. But I want more of that, and I think that's a really, really powerful tool in the sense of bringing yourself to the kids is just as important as bringing the classroom, because we have a lot of everything that happens in the classroom is because of the decisions we make, and they need to know you. And if they don't trust that you have their best interests at heart, they're not really going to listen to any of the lofty academic stuff that is going to help make them successful. I'm a big believer you got to win a kid's heart before you win their head. An interesting experience I had is that one, even if it's brief, getting that a little bit of one-on-one FaceTime of like, hi, I'm Mr. Curtis. Can you remind me your name again? And I'll probably ask 5,000 more times, but know that I'm just working to remember your name. And what instrument did you pick? How's your summer been going? And having these brief little 2-3 minute conversations. Now, what I found most interesting, speaking not only to the kids, but for the personal connection, is, of course, as I'm having this one-on-one conversation with a kid or the family unit of that kid, people are still flowing in and out of the room. And a parent asked me a very well-intentioned, very good question. I don't remember exactly what the context was, but what do we expect about it? Hypothetical. Where do we go for our instrument rental? Or how do we secure an instrument? Or this, that, and the other. And I start explaining that. And I get about 5 minutes into this, and I look up, and I see that there's the whole room is filled, and nobody is talking to one another. All the parents are just listening. All the kids are just listening to me. And that's when I realized in that moment, I was like, well, they just want comfort. They just want security. They just want to feel like there is a person on the other side, not just an email, not just a machine of a program, but there's this person here who's like, hey, I'm here to help.
In the case of like the fourth graders, like being able to talk to every single fourth grader in the district is probably not going to happen.
Realistic at all.
But we go back to your word of mouth emphasis where you might not talk to them, but maybe there's another kid, a cousin, a brother or sister, or another parent or something, some other community contact that has and that can achieve that for you. Maybe going to the school, doing a group visit, take some students with you and have them mingle, and that way you can sort of maximize that one-on-one face-to-face.
I think that's a smart idea. Because you're right, and it shouldn't fall down. Like, granted, I'm fortunate to have a co-director, so we can kind of split the duties on that. But I think you're hitting on it that, like, your own existing students who have already proven that they're committed, that are already proven that they like what you're doing, they're sticking around. Having them act as your advocates is a resource wasted if left just unused. I really do think they have the capacity for a lot of good because they're going to have their own perspective. They're going to have a value system that's much closer in like terms of what your incoming 4th, 5th grade, 6th graders are expecting. They're probably much more familiar faces than the scary adult that they have that they've only seen once or twice, and they can speak more to their level. Not to mention, just like you said, you cover more ground. It's faster. It's more effective. It's efficient.
It can be critical for recruitment too because you can take your students along with you to help recruit. They know the talking points. They know the value system. You've talked about the values. You've talked about what it means to be an orchestra student. And it's like, hey, you get a cubby. Hey, you get to go on trips. Hey, you get to do this stuff. And they know what they're going to say before they go in there, rather than saying, hey, Timmy, hop in the bus. We're going to go play some stuff, and then you just have no idea what they're going to do.
And I think that would be. I think that's an important distinction. Is I feel like, with the specific hypothetical children we're talking about, their value is far more so in their experience and their ability to share that than it is in their playing ability. Because that's, again, I feel like as far as instrument demonstrations for new incoming has to be something accessible. I don't need to go and play something super fancy. I don't need to go and play Bach partita or something like that. Not that I could, but that's not what I need. I need something accessible for them. So those kids, their experiences are what their value is, not necessarily their playing ability in that context. That as well. They go into the individual music class and will take upwards of a week to do a full rotation at a single elementary school to get smaller groups, right? And I think there's a fair amount to say that if you have a smaller group, you can have a more intimate experience and have a better connection with an individual child where they feel like they're being talked to directly rather than being an individual inside a mass. I'm sure there's something to be said about that. Being excitable about it, even if necessarily you in and of yourself, personality-wise, aren't necessarily a bombastic or outgoing, extroverted person, doesn't mean you need to have a completely false personality or be an actor about it, but you do need to capitalize on the parts of the job that excite you in order to, because it's infectious for kids. They don't, you have to go in assuming they know nothing. I'm sure some of them have taken music lessons. I'm sure some of them have older siblings. Work with that too. Like, make that comparison to things that they relate to. Like, oh yeah, like how many of you have parents that play an instrument? How many of you have siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, grandfather? Go on the list and get them to see that it like, you go far enough down the relative or friends list, you'll get the entire room to hold up their hand in some way, shape, or form, and you use that as a tool. It's like, look around you. Music's everywhere. Don't you want to be a part of that? And like, get them excited.
Well, this has been a great conversation, Devon. I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate you watching. If you want to continue the conversation down in the comment section, I encourage you to drop a comment. What have you done in your recruitment that's been successful? What tips can you give that you think that other people can benefit from? And also, don't forget to share this content with others. Help us spread the content out. Help us continue the conversation, get this stuff going. Because again, we want you to be a part of that hero arc. We want you to be successful in your program, and because orchestra can, even as a director, can take you to some pretty great places. So, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, folks.
Which, by the way, is also a way to increase neurogenesis and neurogrowth factor 1.
A lot of words there.
Get that in there.
I hope you did well on your SATs. That's some big words.
I did all right. Yeah.
All right.
I was an orchestra kid. So
Oh, there you go.
I did pretty well.